Hello and welcome to my channel Happy Hours. In my last video, I discussed about the economic history of India, where I discussed about the impact of British economic policies. I discussed about the different dimensions such as drain of wealth, commercialization of agriculture, destruction of handicraft industries, growth of agricultural labor and rural indebtedness. In this video, I am going to discuss about the stages of colonization, where I am going to discuss about mercantilism, phase of free trade and the phase of finance capitalism. I'm also going to discuss about the land revenue administration, where I'm going to discuss about the permanent settlement, Ryotwari Settlement and Mahalwari Settlement. And I'm also going to discuss about the laws adopted by Britishes in between 1757 to 1857. So what are we waiting for? Let's start our discussion about the stages of colonization. The imperialism and the colonization had the same objective and the same effect. In this light, we can say India became victim of British imperialism in order to serve the colonial interests of the Britain. According to John Sullivan, our system acts like a sponge, soaking good things on the bank of Ganges and squeezing at the river Thames. According to R.P. Dutt, there are three stages of colonialism. First, from 1757 to 1813. This is the stage called phase of mercantilism. Now we have to understand what is mercantilism. Mercantilism is an economic practice by which governments use their economies to augment state power at the expense of other countries. The governments sought to ensure that exports exceeded imports and to accumulate wealth in the form of bullion, mostly gold and the silver. The first phase, 1757 to 1830, is the phase of mercantilism in India. Was one of the direct plunder in which surplus Indian revenues were used to buy Indian finished goods to be exported to England. Now we have to understand about the social policy. The East India Company initially not decided to interfere in social and religious affairs. Company had apprehension of social revolt and threat to the newly established company's rule. Some individual efforts were made in educational system in order to get trained judicial expert from Hindus and Muslims. Warren Hastings had established Calcutta Madrasa. Jonathan Duncan had established Sanskrit College at Banaras, and William Carey was a missionary. He established primary schools at Serampur, Odisha. Company's government started large-scale translation of Indian text to understand the Indian culture. Asiatic Society of Bengal was established by William Jones in 1784 for the translation of Indian text. Next is the political policy. The company had followed the policy of indirect subordination, that is, subsidiary alliance. There was reform in judicial and civil administration. Civil court was separated from criminal court. Post of civil servants established by Lord Cornwallis. Next, we are having the economic policy. There was Plassey plunder, and the rich trade of Bengal was captured. The land revenue administration was made for continuous exploitation of largest source of income. Lord Cornwallis has introduced permanent settlement in Bengal, which gave big support to British economic system. Now we are going to discuss about the second phase of colonialism, that is the phase of free trade. In the second phase, 1813 to 1858 of free trade, India was converted into a source of raw material and a market for British manufactured goods. And opening markets was done so with no tariff or no tax throughout the entire empire in India for the import of British manufactured goods. We can say that the British policy of free trade was designed to promote British industrialists. The beginning of 19th century, the British colonial model in India had changed. British government and British Indian government Both started making laws to interfere in social and religious affairs. Charter Act of 1813 was passed. Now the Christian missionaries were officially permitted to start the humanitarian activities. 1 lakh rupees budget was prescribed for the promotion of education based on Western values. The cultural interference was mainly intended for minimizing the cultural gap in between the Indian and the British, in order to increase the acceptability of British rule in India. British government of India passed laws like Regulation 17, that is the abolition of Sati Act, Widow Remarriage Act 1856, etc. These were the social policies adopted by British in this era. Next is the political policies. British started massive expansionist policy by declaring war against the Indian states and policy of doctrine of lapse. There was maximum expansion of British Empire in this colonial phase. British also started the means of control on Indian system. Lord William Bentinck constituted a committee known as General Committee on Public Instruction under Macaulay. English was accepted as medium of instruction. Framing of laws had also started in order to establish uniform general administration and judicial administration. Finally, CRPC and IPC were codified in the year 1860 to 61. Next, I am going to discuss about the economic policies. In the beginning of 19th century, Industrial Revolution of England had entered in the phase of production. Therefore, it needed to market for British industrial product. British started its policy to destroy Indian handicraft. British extended the land revenue administration in central and southern India. It was Ryotwari Settlement and Mahalwari Settlement. Now the rate of land revenue was highest. Therefore, British successfully generated maximum economic benefit in this phase. Next and the last phase is the third phase, between 1860 to 1947. They have adopted three policies here: social, political and economic. I am going to discuss about the social first. Social policy. In the background of revolt of 1857, British government decided not to interfere the core religious and cultural values of Indians. British government continued the promotion of modern education as well as passing some marriageable act like Civil Marriage Act 1872. Now the Age of Consent Act was also passed in the year 1891, Sarda Act in 1929, etc. British government highlighted the lower caste movement and provoked the communal consciousness among the Muslims in order to break the social base of nationalism. About the political policies. After the revolt of 1857, British followed the principle of consolidation, then divide and rule, followed by policy of compromise with respect to nationalism, Indian national movement and the mass movement. The war of position in this phase definitely came in the favor of Indians. After beginning of mass movement, this war of position forced British to exit from India. Last is the economic policy, also known as individual colonization. The neo-capitalists of England started investment in secondary and tertiary sector. They were getting guaranteed interest plus share in profit. This resulted in massive capital formation in England. This policy had increased the purchasing power of Indian. Thereby, India became the market for British industrial product. So we can say that a middle class was created by them. For the secondary and tertiary sectors, people of India were educated in such a way that they started working in this sector. They were salaried. Now they are the buyers of the product produced in the Britain as a result of industrial revolution of Britain. Earlier there were only two classes. First was the artisans and the second was the zamindars. Now a middle class was also there. And this middle class was created by British for their market. In future, this middle class was the strong pillar for the national movement. Land revenue was utilized to provide dividend to shareholders of the East India Company. Now I am going to discuss about the land revenue administration, in which I am going to discuss about the three settlements adapted by Britishers, and these were permanent, Ryotwari and Mahalwari. So first I am going to discuss about the permanent settlement. Initially, permanent settlement was considered as the bold, brave and wise measure. The intelligentsia of Bengal, like Raja Ram Mohan Roy, supported permanent settlement. Very soon, the problems of revenue collection had developed. Therefore, sunset law was applied. Traditional zamindars were replaced by new aristocracy, whose background was capitalist and money lending. They were known as absentee landlords. So the exploitation of peasants had increased and the prosperous peasants of Bengal faced massive famine. So ultimately, it has disastrous impact on peasants, traditional zamindars and British. By permanent settlement, British successfully created a class of collaborators which helped British in consolidation of British Empire. They supported British in the revolt of 1857 and the traditional zamindars actively participated in the revolt of 1857. It is also known as the permanent settlement of Bengal, and it was an agreement in between the East India Company and the landlords of the Bengal to fix revenues to be raised from land that had far-reaching consequences for both agricultural methods and productivity in the entire British Empire and the political realities of Indian countryside. It was concluded in the year 1793 by the company. Now I am going to discuss about the Ryotwari Settlement. This settlement was implemented in Madras, Bombay and Assam. This settlement was introduced by Reed and Munro. The rate of land revenue was highest, around 55% to 60%. There was no zamindar or middleman. British directly made settlement with the peasants. The rate of land revenue was so high that peasants lost purchasing power and means of livelihood. They lost interest in cultivation. Land became uneconomic, so asset value of peasant had decreased. Next and the last one is the Mahalwari Settlement. What is Mahal? Mahal is a group of villages. Here, the Mukhya is also known as the Nambardar. They were the British agent, so they were paid by the British. In this settlement, there was collective responsibility. It was implemented in central India, Awadh, Punjab and Northwest. It was implemented by Elphinstone and Holt Mackenzie in 1822. Role of village headman was very significant in collection and deposition of revenue. Village headman was known as Nambardar. He was not Jamindar and was paid by British, as I have mentioned earlier, means he is getting monthly salary. Method of revenue collection was average rate of land revenue on all the peasants. Therefore, small peasants were exploited. Now I am going to discuss about the important laws adopted by British in between 1757 to 1857. First is the Regulating Act 1773. Second is the East India Act 1784. under which two things happened. First is the Board of Control was established with 6 members in London. This was the highest body to govern company system in India. Secondly, initially we have seen that Governor General Council were having 4 members, but now 1 member was reduced, so it became 3 in order to make Governor General more decisive. Charter Act 1813. Here 2 features were there. First, monopoly of East India Company was abolished, but still they were having monopoly on tea trade and the trade with China. Secondly, Christian missionaries were officially permitted to operate in India. 1 lakh rupees was fixed annual budget to promote education system. Next is the Charter Act 1833, in which they completely abolished monopoly of East India Company. Governor General of Bengal became Governor General of India. Now he got the law-making power also. A new law member was added in Governor General's Council. Macaulay was the first law member. A separate appointment of Governor of Bengal took place. Therefore, there were 3 governors and 1 Governor General. So Lord Dalhousie was real Governor General of India. Next and the last is the Charter Act 1853. A council was created of 12 members, which was known as Legislative Council. A system of competitive examination was started, known as the Imperial Civil Service. With this, we have understood about the different stages of colonialism, different settlements, and different laws implemented from 1757 to 1857. So I am concluding. Hope you like it. So kindly share and subscribe. Thank you.